communicated through your event brand guide and your written and video communication as you promote your event. Now, while this is true of all events, it is helpful not to miss this element when it comes to planning your online event, and consider the unique online methods to respond to this narrative. Determining your stage lineup. Who can communicate your goals most effectively in spoken, written, or musical form? Often the impetus, even the existence of an event, comes from the lineup of speakers, subject matter experts, influencers, and musical artists. While this may be the main hook to gather a big audience, the simple ability to gather an attractional stage lineup should not determine your event. The why and the narrative should always come first. Individuals or groups who present or perform from your stage need to serve that particular vision and narrative. And if this doesn't happen, there is a possibility that you, your audience, and your guest speaker will come away from this event feeling used, and this lack of cohesion almost never achieves the worthwhile purposes for which you started out. Now, when considering either a hybrid or a completely online event, it's important to consider the different mediums of communication you're employing. A stage in front of 50,000 people in an arena versus small screens in front of 1 million people are two entirely different mediums. Although the latter is reaching a much bigger audience, a small screen is always a much more intimate medium and requires an approach where the audience is being addressed in a more direct, one-on-one manner, much like I'm doing now. When considering your lineup, also consider how you're going to communicate to both audiences most effectively, and consider how your lineup is going to do this. Audience engagement is important in both mediums of communication. Now, it's clear to all of us that the world was taken by surprise by the COVID-19 pandemic. And the one question that we've received more than any others throughout this time is predicated on the longing to return to in-person events, but then people say how things will change in a post-COVID world with regard to online events. And our response has long been that we also long for the return to in-person events that we're seeing now. However, online events are not going away. Even before COVID, the online component of events was increasingly in demand, and the complexity was also increasing. So this is an area you shouldn't ignore for too much longer. So that's pretty much all there is for this section. So let's go through our checklist. In this session, we're going to go through all the considerations that you need to think about in relationship to producing your online event. When you design a large in-person event, much thought is often given not only to the content that is delivered from the stage in the main plenaries, but also to the design of the stage and the main auditorium. Also critical is the decor, flow, and hospitality from registration through the main sessions, the breakout seminars, the layout and the movement flow of attendees moving from main session to the exhibition hall, let's say, and finally, the time and the spacing between sessions. All of this process, along with thousands of other considerations unique to your organization, takes time and consideration. The bottom line is the way that the event is designed communicates to attendees their value and the value of the experience. Design gives us the opportunity and the ability to create the correct emotion and feeling needed to highlight the importance of the content that is being communicated in your event. Now, similar motivations must guide the approach to designing an online event. An amazing brand contained with killer design, implemented with a highly intuitive user experience, will create the difference between a good and a great event. Creating this wow factor, as we like to call it, is something that will create that difference. Your audience is typically part of your tribe. They've come to your URL to experience your event. Now, while your audience could experience your broadcast within the context of a social media platform or even a cookie-cutter platform, in such scenarios, often the platform itself becomes a dominant part of the experience. You are in essence meeting in, say, Facebook's building rather than your own. Now, those of the utilitarian mindset may not care for this design aspect, yet I believe, and all of us at the Sardius team believe, that it's important to think about the following components in a similar way to the way that you would consider the component parts of an in-person event. Considering the video, the user interface, which we call the UI, which is typically more about the design aspect, the user experience, or UX, which is typically more about the functionality of the platform, as well as the timing of the overall presentation that altogether determines the quality and the wow factor of your event. Now, Sardius can adopt a number of approaches when it comes to design and UI, and that's perfectly fine. In such situations, Sardius provides